Welcome to coverage of Round 5 here at Grand Prix Minneapolis. Marie Bertholdi in the booth, joined by Paulo Vito Damaderosa, Ben Stark on the left side of your screen, and Ben Yu on the right side of your screen. So, Ben, mirror match here in round number 5. Both players currently undefeated, sitting at 4-0. All right, so we are underway. Yu plays the first land on the play here. And 2 dual lands for both of our players here, which is something unique kind of to M19 that you have access to that. So a little bit of fixing that you normally find in a core set.
Yeah, and they're not common cards. They exist instead of basic lands in some of the packs, which actually makes them less common than they would be if they were common cards. But you're guaranteed some, not guaranteed, but you're very likely to get some number of them.
Right. Vampire Neonate, the first play here for you, doesn't match up very well against Stark's Oresco Swiftclaw.
Does not. Does match up very well against the other play he made of Hessian Pyromancer there.
Yeah, so he's going to take a 3 damage from that Swiftclaw, as well as an additional 2 to the face from the Viashino Pyromancer. 5 power on the board for Stark. Back over to you, who's able to drain there at the end of the turn.
Yeah, and I talked to Stark a bit about this format. We're teammates. And I know he does not like his deck already based on the colors that he's playing. He thinks, obviously he'll play whatever he's supposed to play.
Sure.
But I know he shares my opinion that you want to have good rares and not necessarily have this aggressive deck in day 1. But he would really like this deck on day 2.
Sure. And here you see, excuse me, kind of one of the issues there with exactly what you're talking about. Yu was able to play a Diamond Mare, which now holds off the entire team from Stark. And it's just a 1/3.
Yeah, and obviously there are red-white decks that have bombs, right?
Yep, Resplendent Angel.
Can just, untap, play Resplendent Angel, and then untap, play a Dragon.
Yeah. And
that would win the game, but that is not usually the play pattern for a deck like this, and that is just devastating. Skeleton Archer on the rest of Swiftclaw.
Best target for the Skeleton Archer, too. Pew, shoots down the 3-1. And the Diamond Mare getting on the offense here, swinging in for a point of damage. By the way, that Diamond Mare also going to be gaining you life throughout the course of the game. An Angel of the Dawn here for Stark, which is one of the better cards in the format, certainly one of the better commons, but kind of lackluster right now.
Yeah, and that is really one of the cornerstone commons for their red-white archetype, especially in draft. You just want to flood the board, and there are multiple creatures in both colors that make more than one creature. So the Goblin Instigator makes a token, and then there's the cards that make night tokens as well.
Right.
So you're really just aiming to flood the board and attack for a lot.
Strangling Spores will deal with Angel of the Dawn. So Stark just left with the Pyromancer in play currently.
Yeah, and I think you can just start attacking here. Yeah. There's no reason to leave back the Diamond Mare. If Stark does want to spend a removal spell on the Neonate, he attacks for 2, and really, who cares?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You've used your removal on my 0-3. Although it's kind of funny, Vampire Neonate has proven to be more valuable than I initially thought. People are playing it quite a lot in this set.
Oh yeah, the same for me. At first I looked at it and I'm like, this card is whatever. But then, it actually blocks a lot. It triggers all your life gain synergy, which is present in black-white a lot. And it just kills them at some point. They can't block it. And, you just start draining them if the game stalls, and eventually you win. So I think it's quite a bit better than I originally anticipated.
Lena Selfless Champion hits the table for Stark, coming along with 2 soldier tokens. You get as many as creatures you have in play when Lena hits the table. You can sacrifice certain creatures you control with power less than her power, gain indestructible until end of turn. Also just a 3/3 body on top of all of this.
Yeah, pretty good card. Not that exciting in this situation. I guess not as exciting as a lot of 6-mana cards would be.
Yeah.
He'd much rather have like a Volcanic Dragon.
Oh, I'm going all the way to the top.
Yeah, or that. You're more ambitious than I am, but
Skeleton Archer is going to trade with a soldier and the Viashino Pyromancer here, leaving Stark with 1 soldier and Lena still on the table. Oof, a 4/4 joins the team for you.
Yeah, and that's going to be very good with the Diamond Mare and the Vampire Neonate.
Oh, absolutely.
Or not.
Well,
or we'll just die immediately, but
there it goes. Electrify takes it down. Yeah, that would have been quite the little combo that we'd had going on there for you. doing precisely what black and white wants to do in this format. Although I do see that blue splash there, what's been sitting around since the beginning of the game. When you see something like that, Paulo, what are you starting to think about?
Well, the blue splash, a lot of the blue cards, like Essence Scatter, for example, I think is the best blue common, but it's not really that splashable of a card because, you want to have access to it early in the game and so on. I think Psychic Symbiont, for example, is a card that I wouldn't be unhappy to splash in a black deck, so that could be the card he has.
Militia Bugler here for you. A look at Psychic Symbiont there for a moment on screen. A fantastic 3/3 flyer. Cause them to discard and you draw one. There's the Bugler. We found 2/2 flyer off of it, so it did its job. Bugled well.
Yeah. I'm actually looking at Banyu's deck list, and it does look like I have to be more ambitious, because the card he's splashing is Chromion the Mutable. So that is much better than the Psychic Symbiont.
I mean, that's always where my mind goes first is, it's an Elder Dragon. I'm worst case scenarioing immediately. And in this case, turns out to be true.
Yeah, it's like if they have a red splash, you're like, okay, I'm just going to get Bane fired.
Yeah,
I
right.
Just accept my fate right now, and yeah.
There she is, Chromium. Flash can't be countered. Flying turns into a 1/1 hexproof human if you discard. Can't be blocked this turn. So basically everything that I want in life.
Yeah, it turns into your favorite card.
Yeah.
For a turn.
And the fact that it's a 1/1 too. Gotta love those 1/1 hexproofs. Am I right?
Yeah. No, not really. But
Fire Elemental on the table for Ben Stark. Taking a read of Lena there. And there's our Skymarch Bloodletter for you. Draining for a point of damage.
Yeah, and there's also another blue card in Yu's deck. It's Switcheroo.
Switcheroo, yeah, sure.
Yeah, which is a card that I think is much better in Sealed than it is in Draft.
Why do you say that?
Well, Sealed is just slower. In Draft, a lot of the time, you give them a creature, you steal their creature. And, that's not good enough. It costs 5 mana. And people are more likely to have bombs in Seal deck.
That's true.
Because twice as many packs are opened. So you have to deal with twice as many rares than you do in Draft. So it's mandatory that you have an answer for a rare. But overall, not a card that I love. I'll say that. It's a card that you look at and you think, this is the first pick. You gather Dragon and you give them a 1/1. I don't think it usually plays out that way, but I'm still pretty happy to play it in Sealed.
We're getting a peek now at more of Stark's deck here, as you can see, as the game plays out a little longer. Goblin Motivator, got the Chaplain, a lot of early aggressive cards here for this. Something that we mentioned it before is kind of more what you would hope in a draft deck than in a Sealed build.
Yeah, those cards in particular, I think, you wouldn't hope for them at any point, really.
Oh, you wouldn't even play the Motivator in draft? Come on,
oh, no, but not together.
Oh, yes.
Like,
Great.
I don't think you're happy playing Motivator into, 1/3 left flank attack immediately, or like take it. And, oh, wow, that's a better Lena.
Yes, this Lena is significantly more impressive than Stark's. Use is going to create a whole mess of 1/1 soldier tokens. We'll see if we even have enough down in the feature match area. Sure enough, we don't. But yeah, that's a lot of soldiers there for Lena.
I like that when Stark played Lena, Ben, you just read it.
Yeah.
And you're like, you have that one too.
That's true.
What are you reading?
I wonder if he was just trying to, get a little bit of an edge there, or if he did actually have to read it and then he drew it. Luminous Bonds will lock down the Skymarch Bloodletter. Ben Stark's life total currently at 8 to Ben Yu's 14.
Yeah, and now the combat actually gets pretty complicated with both teams having the ability to give indestructible to some of their creatures. And, lifelinkers in play. So the good news for you is that he doesn't have to attack. He has that Neonate. He's just, after 8 turns, he's going to win the game. But can he make that any faster?
Here's the thing, too. All of Yu's team can be made indestructible with Lena's sacrifice.
Yeah.
They're all less power than she is.
Oh, there's Luminous Bonds, too. So if you Luminous Bonds, say, the Fire Elemental, then that's how many attackers is that? It's 10 attackers. No, 9. And plus a Neonate. Yeah, and Stark will have 4 blockers.
Yeah, it looks like you considering here Luminous Bondsing. if that's a verb.
Well,
From
it
his
is.
hand.
It is now.
Write it down. Webster's call me. Sure enough, Fire Elemental going to get locked down by Luminous Bonds from you.
Yeah, I feel like now at this point we have to see an attack. Otherwise, there's no reason to play this Luminous Bond. The Fire
Right.
Elemental isn't attacking anyway, so it doesn't make any sense to just Luminous Bonds that and pass the turn.
You here considering the attack step.
I mean, yeah, if you were going to attack, I think you attack with everything except for the Neonate, probably.
Life total at 14, so still pretty healthy. And here's an attack from Lena. We've seen a multi-block there from Ben Stark. It's going to lose the Goblin Motivator and a Soldier.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure that's the trade venue actually wants.
Yeah, because Stark only had to lose 2 creatures because the Daybreak Chaplain blocked as well. And now, you know, we don't have the possibility of making our use team indestructible.
And he even gained 1 life in the process.
Yeah.
Because the lifelink block, yeah. Though I guess Oraska's Swift Claw has never looked so bad. Into this
That's
board of
true.
5/1/1s.
That's true.
Oh, I love that card.
Oh, here we go. We're going to blow up the Luminous Bonds here from this Meteor Golem from Ben Yu. So Skymarch Bloodletter suddenly back in play, able to swing in.
Yeah, I really, really like Meteor Golem.
How about the 7 mana? Is that any bit of a drawback for you? Or if you're like, it's plain sealed, I'm playing a 7 mana creature.
Yeah, I think the second. It's sealed. You can play a 7 mana creature. It kills anything. Like, it just, well, not lands. I
That's
guess.
true. That's true.
Anything that you would want to. You know, it even destroys planeswalkers.
Yeah.
And-
Non-land permanent.
And it's an artifact, so there are synergies with it.
Sure.
You can bring it back with, you know, the Trusty
Trusty
Back
Back Base.
Beast, and it triggers your Gears Mist and stuff like that. So I'm kind of out. I cannot imagine ever having a sealed deck that won't play it if it's available.
All right, Knightly Valor here from Ben Yu was going to go on the Chaplain, but Ben Stark scoops him up. That is game number 1 going to Ben Yu here in round number 5 of Grand Prix Minneapolis. Okay, while our players shuffle and sideboard up for game number 2, it's time for some fact or fiction here. Let's take a look at Patient Rebuilding. We were just talking about this card. This is the biggest bomb in M19 Limited. Fact or fiction, Paulo?
I think fact.
Really?
I
This is
think
what you
so.
want more than anything else.
I think so.
I mean, you mentioned you love
Yeah.
blue.
I do love blue. I mean, if it's not the best, it's certainly close. You know, it's like
Right.
Planeswalker power level. It's basically a Planeswalker that they can't attack. Like, it does something every turn.
That's true.
Eventually they die, which is, I guess, the ultimate. You know, so...
Ultimate, your opponent's dead. You win the game.
Yeah. So, like, would I rather have Tazarat or a Patient Rebuilding? I don't really know, but I think... I'm good enough saying fact for this.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, fact, Patient Rebuilding. Pack 1, pick 1, top of the pile here for Paulo. All right, let's take a look at another fact or fiction. Psymaster Thopterist on your screen. This looks like a build-around first pick. It's actually just a trap. Fact or fiction?
I think fact as well. It's not that it's bad. It cannot be bad, right?
Sure.
It's a 3-mana 1/4 with 2 abilities. If you even play just 1 artifact, it's already great. So I can't imagine I wouldn't play it in a blue deck with any number of artifacts. But I don't think it's a build around. You shouldn't first pick Psy Master Thopterist and then be like, okay, I'm going to pick this bad artifact because I have Psy. And then you end up with, 4 or 5 artifacts and Psy, but they're all bad. You shouldn't do that. So I think, yeah, you pick it. You play it if you have the right deck for it, which it will be most blue decks. But I don't really like building around it.
Would you still take this first in a draft, or there's probably just something better that you want in the pack?
Oh, I wouldn't be happy to first pick it.
Okay.
I would be looking for something else.
All right, so there you go. Fact. Psy can be a trap to build around. How do you find the artifact deck in general? Say it mostly comes together.
I don't really like it because all the artifacts are bad. It's not like when we had the historic decks in the previous format. There were a lot of artifacts you were just very happy playing.
Right.
And in this format, I feel like all the artifacts are kind of lackluster,
You've got Marauder's Axe, Field Creeper, explosives. Not super great.
Yeah, like I feel like the artifacts that are good are the rares. Like Chaos Wand is good, for example.
Sigiled Sword of Valeran.
Yeah,
is
that one's
good.
good too. Transmortifying Wind is good.
Yep.
But and then you have like Meteor Golem, that's good, but it costs 7. So can you really count on it as your artifact synergy? Like if you have a 1/2 Gearsmith for 1 mana, you're like, well, I'm going to play Meteor Golem, turns 7 and turns this into a 2/2. That's just really not a synergy. So I think both the enablers, the artifacts themselves, and the payoff cards aren't that good. So you really need a very good version of the artifact deck for it to be good, in my opinion.
All right, good to know. If you're heading out to play some drafts or heading online on Arena or MTGO. I do really like to draft. This might be kind of one of my weaknesses, maybe. I love to draft themed decks, so either a tribal-based decks or decks that are specifically like, oh, artifacts matter or life gain matters. I love doing that kind of thing. I think sometimes to my detriment when I just like, maybe you should just pick a good card, Maria.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a mistake. I think there are formats in which it's great and there are specific archetypes that are great. And when it does work, it's a huge benefit for you because you are taking cards that no one else wants. And you are turning 8th picks into 1st picks.
Sure.
So, like, you say you're the only life gain matters deck, and then there's a card that gains life, like a Vampire Neonate.
Yeah.
Every one that is open will get to you, regardless of when it's open. And it's a card you very happily play. So you get what is like a 3rd pick for you, 14th, for example. It's a huge advantage. And it just so happens that the artifact deck itself in this format isn't good, I think. But the theme of drafting a theme isn't necessarily bad. I think if your theme is life gain, then that works in this format. If your theme is auras, it works in this format. You know, even sometimes goblins, depending on how many uncommons you have, works in this format. So I wouldn't say it's a problem with your strategy. It's just that I don't like artifacts specifically in this format.
Okay. All right. Whew. I'm still good here. Yeah, I saw somebody actually had the perfect goblins deck recently, which was really cool to see. You know, they had Goblin Trashmaster, which is the Goblin Lord. They had a bunch of, you know, ways to make 1/1 goblins, and Volley Veteran, the 4/2 that comes in and deals damage to a creature based on how many goblins you control. It was pretty cool to see. I love when that kind of stuff comes together in a format.
Yeah, that is the biggest payoff for goblins, I think, Volley Veteran. If you have like 2 or 3 of those. You know, it's uncommon. It's a good card, so some people will take it even though they aren't dedicated to goblins, but it's possible you end up with 3, and then your deck's going to be great. And here we see Stark doing something that most people don't do in Limited. It seems like he's switching a whole color.
Yes, it does.
And if you were wondering, why is he doing that? I think that is because he saw how badly his 3/1s matched up against Benyu's deck.
Right.
Because he saw tokens from Benyu. He saw 1/3 lifelinkers. And he saw, you know, Diamond Mare. And he just doesn't feel like he can win with this aggressive component. So he's trying something else. He's perhaps playing, you know, if I had to guess, I would guess he's boarding into a green deck.
Okay.
Something that is bigger. And it's possible that he feels, well, this is just not a fast enough deck to compete against the average opponent. Because, you know, I'm going to start by playing a creature on turn 5. I'll just be dead by then. But he's already played against Benyu. He knows Benyu is not a deck that will kill him by turn 5.
Right.
So he knows he can afford to play those bigger creatures. Obviously, he could just be switching a couple cards and then I'm spewing nonsense here. But, you know.
It's still good to talk about, right? I mean, just being able to have that option open to yourself while you're building, keeping it in your head like, hey, if I run into somebody like Benyu who's playing that kind of deck, I have the possibility of boarding into, for instance, a green deck.
Yeah, I think people should consider that more than they normally do.
I agree.
And in part because people are a little bit lazy.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
Not only because...
I'm guilty of this. Like, ugh, I don't want to sideboard. Let's just go to game 2. You know?
Yeah, and you know, you're sideboarding 20 cards. You have to board out the lands. Ideally, you've already figured out what your sideboard is, so you don't have to be thinking about it during the match, or you might even not have time for it. It's not that Ben took a long time, or Ben Stark, rather.
No.
And yeah, he might just present a blue-green deck for all we know.
All right, well, he's at least kept white in his, but it looks like it's going to be white-blue.
Okay.
All right, so he had a red-white deck, and now white-blue, it appears, at least, so far.
Oh, there's green.
There's green.
That's partially
all
right.
There you go. Marauder's Axe in play for you here. On turn 2, on 3, a Mentor of the Meek for you, which seems excellent in his deck, which is a great card.
Oh, yeah, it's especially excellent against Bant.
Yeah.
You know, there has no way of killing it. I mean, there's no, you know, Rabbit Bite, and
Yeah, if you dwindle it, well, you can still use the ability.
Yeah, Luminous Bonds doesn't work either. So there aren't a lot of ban cards that deal with it. Now, counter spells do stop its ability from triggering, so that part's bad.
Ravenous Harpy here from you will get canceled from Stark. So you will not, as you mentioned, be able to pay for that to draw a card.
Wow, no attacks.
No attack?
Oh, so he's playing around Take Vengeance. That is what it is. He thinks, yeah, so you is thinking, well, if this creature lives, I can't lose. And my opponent is playing Bant, so it's very likely to leave. So I don't want to expose it to what is the one removal spell that you can have in those colors for just 2 damage. I don't care about the 2 damage. I'm going to win this game by having more resources and not by punishing you.
Heads up play there from you.
Yeah, I like it.
It's definitely something you have to think about. How valuable is my Mentor of the Meek versus 2 damage?
Yeah, and that obviously depends on the composition of your deck, how the game's gone so far, what you have in your hand. You know, if Hugh's hand is randomly like 2 lava axes, then we're like, well, I have to get this 2 points of damage in. But yeah, now the Mentor of the Meek doesn't actually work with the Skeleton Archer, so that's another 2 damage that he misses, so to speak. So that's 4 damage missed for no gain. Okay. So at some point, you're like, well, maybe you should start attacking, but maybe not.
All right, so a Sift has found Stark a 5/5 Vigilance Beastie Boy here onto the table, which is going to block all of you's team.
So you see, I was right. He did run into a blue-green deck, and he's probably just splashing white for something. You know, potentially Take Vengeance. Yeah. I don't think he has Raska Swiftclaw in his deck anymore, for example. When I saw the planes, I was like, well, I guess I was just wrong. And it's interesting that Mentor of the Meek works when a creature enters the battlefield, so it also works with tokens like Knightly Valor.
Yeah, Knightly Valor here beefing up the Skeleton Archer and bringing in that 2/2 Knight token. And we're going to go ahead and make the trade there. So Vigilant Baloth down, Skeleton Archer down, Knightly Valor down, but we still have that 2/2 in play, and we were able to draw a card. Really interesting to see how Ben Stark, has changed his deck up here in game number 2, and there is a Divination and now a Wall of Mist, so it kind of couldn't be more different from game number 1, which is hyper red-white aggro.
Yeah, I'm even surprised the Wall of Mist is there, to be honest. Maybe he thought, well, I can't be that slow. But yeah, he did bring in, Sift, Cancel, Divination, and if you have this critical mass of slow cards in game 1, you could just very easily lose to a deck similar to the one Stark presented in game 1.
Sure.
So you can't risk it a lot of the time. But once you know your opponent's low, and the fact that the Mentor of the Meek is never even attacking is proof that the deck is low. He's not trying to rush you with damage. He's just trying to gain more value than you.
And I think that's something that players can kind of key in on that not all of the time people do, which is, why isn't my opponent attacking with this Mentor of the Meek and they've missed, 6, 4, 8 damage with it? Sure, they could be playing around Take Vengeance, but another answer could be that, well, maybe they just have such strong top end in their deck that they're not worried about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you're not at, oh, I like that.
Oh,
I really like that.
Ben Stark getting it done. 2 copies of Millstone hit the table. All right, if you like Mill, now is not the time to look away. Let's find out what happens here.
And yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to see an attack from you here.
Yes.
Like now, the tables have turned. You have to do something.
And we've equipped up our Knight token with the Marauder's Axe as well. That Wall of Mist, though, doing a little bit of work here for Stark, being able to block that. 4 damage.
And very interesting now, assuming Ben Stark does win this game with milling, are we going to see Ben Yu sideboarding into a different deck? Because Ben Yu could easily sideboard into red-white.
That's true.
And then completely punish those Divinations and Sifts and Millstones and Cancels.
Meteor Golem here, not even going for the Millstones. We're going to go for the Wall of Mist, which makes sense because Yu knows the game is on, and we've got to race those mill cards.
Yeah, I mean, Yu has a sizable clock.
Yeah, he does.
It's 9 damage. It's a lot. So Ben Stark has to react to it and can't just be activating his Millstones every turn.
He needs to at least commit something to the board here. Ooh, this is a nice one. Reclamation Sage from Stark will take care of that Meteor Golem. Ooh, and a 2-3 flyer to boot, hitting the table.
Yeah, Skyrider Patrol, really, really good. One of the main reasons to be blue-green, I think.
I love Skyrider Patrol. Handing out those +1/+1 counters, sending creatures to the air, riding around on a mantis with a bow, living your best life.
I guess it is doing that.
All right, so that was a pretty good turn there for Stark, which it kind of looked not great after you had played that Meteor Golem.
I know, it looked horrible. And yeah, the tables have turned again, I guess. A lot of back and forth here.
I gotta say, I like this deck better than the other one he was playing. At least it's showing us its best game here.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of thing that maybe we saw the bad part of the
yeah,
previous
it could
deck.
be. Yep.
Because there's no way Ben would just be playing red-white, no good cards, right? There's just not a thing. So he had to have some good cards or some general strategy thing.
So Mentor of the Meek and the Night Token both get in, blocked by the Wreck Sage and the Skyrider Patrol, but Inspired Charge takes them both down from you. Salvager of Secrets is going to come back, and it's going to be a cancel that returns to Stark's hand. Rabid Bite here takes down the Mentor of the Meek from Ben Yu.
Yeah, Mentor of the Meek finally dead. One of the most scary cards you can face. Actually didn't do anything. Drew one card over the course of 15 turns or whatever. But
and the choice to kind of kill that one here is just saying, hey, I know I can trade with the 2/2 equipped with the axe. That's fine. I need to get rid of your card drawing engine.
Yeah, and this game now seems a little bit over because Ben Stark has a cancel in hand. So Ben Yu has to draw 2 impactful cards while Ben Stark draws nothing. Yep. And has to also kill him before those millstones finish him off, which can't be many turns away.
I've got to say, Bone Dragon here from you.
And that is quite good versus millstone, as it turns out.
Yeah, that's true. There it is, 5/4 flyer. You can pay 5 and exile 7 other cards from your graveyard. Return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Yeah, we said that Ben Stark didn't even bother to cancel it because it can just come back, so it would just be, a fog, basically. That it would cost Ben Yu 5.
All right, Luminous Bonds, though, a fabulous answer, taking care of that Bone Dragon and the axe that it was wielding. It's a horrifying image. But it says something a lot, too, that Stark got cancel back with the Salvager of Secrets. I don't know if I would have been so disciplined. I would have probably picked Sift. Gotten greedy. Here's a switcheroo from you.
Yeah, Ben Stark already has everything that he needs, so to speak. He just has to not die. So I think it's fine to get cancel back in a spot like this.
All right, so we've canceled the switcheroo, so that's not going to happen. 2 Millstone activations here.
And here, Ben Yu is probably thinking, well, there's a lot of cards left, so he's not going to concede yet. And Ben Stark's deck looks pretty good in this matchup board, but also doesn't look like he can deal with Chromium very well.
Well, he just got cancel back yet again. There's a Salvager of Secrets. But where is Chromium is the real question.
Yeah, I think now for Ben Yu, it's Chromium or bust. And the question is, do you want to just concede and not show anything? Or I think no. I think the answer is you just
try and go for it.
Yeah, you just try and draw Chromium, because if you do, you win in 2 turns.
Remember, Chromium cannot be countered. That is key here, as Stark is holding a cancel in hand. And it's got to be something that's at least on his mind, given the colors that Ben Yu has presented, and no blue really in sight. I mean, we saw the switcheroo, but you've got to think, is that really all I was splashing for? Oh, there it is! Chromium into the graveyard on the mill! Oh, Stark's got to be happy about that.
Yeah, and now Ben Yu has to be thinking about conceding to both save time and just not show Ben Stark his deck. He knows he has. Yeah, that's
he's going to see the whole thing. Okay, so Ben Yu scoops him up. That'll tie things up here. Ben Stark, Ben Yu, 1 game apiece here in round number 5 at Grand Prix Minneapolis, and that was pretty cool. Got to see a little bit of fireworks there if you love Mill, which I know a lot of players do. Alternative win strategies are pretty fun in Magic, and one of the unique things about the game, and the ability to be able to do that in a core set, I know is up a lot of people's alleys.
Yeah, for sure. And now comes the most interesting game in this match, because what are the players going
Right.
to do? Like, now Ben Yu has the information that Ben Stark did, so they both have the same information. And are they going to change their decks? Is Ben Stark capable of changing his deck to red-white without Ben Yu noticing, for example? Is this something he would want to do?
I don't
If you're
know.
playing Magic Online and your opponent doesn't get to see you physically sideboarding, then that is something you can do, and they have no way of finding out. But in a spot like this, Ben Yu is going to see it. Unless he's just completely focused on his own sideboarding, he's going to see if Ben presents a new deck or the old deck. And we're probably going to see Ben Yu taking out some cards that are geared against aggressive decks.
Right.
Like 1/3s, for example. Those are probably not going to be in his deck anymore. And instead we'll see things like Macabre Waltz or whatever the type of card that he has that he's not playing.
We can already see a pretty big pile accumulating in front of Ben Yu over here as he decides how to sideboard here for game number 3, which could turn out to be very interesting. I'm not quite sure what Ben Stark is up to. I saw him pull a couple of cards out.
And my favorite thing is spots like this is to take out a bunch of cards and just board the same cards in.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that.
So people don't know what I'm actually doing. Because assuming Ben Stark wants to keep his deck the exact same,
Yeah.
right? He can't just do that.
No.
He can't just shuffle up and present the same deck. Because Ben Yu is going to know exactly what's up. He has to at least put, some shadow of doubt in Ben Yu's mind that he could be having a more aggressive approach, that he could be bringing in something different.
Right.
So I think you just lose so much value if you just tell your opponent, I'm not changing my deck at all.
And that's essentially what you're doing. You're, like you said, you're saying, I'm not changing my deck at all. When would you do that? No, you wouldn't. So
Yeah.
why would you not at least pretend to sideboard?
Yeah, exactly. And especially because you're not eating any time because your opponent is busy sideboarding.
Right.
So it's not like you're delaying your round or whatever.
Still
in a spot
18
like
minutes
this.
on the clock, that's plenty of time for a third game.
Yeah. And then Ben Yu could, there are a lot of directions Ben Yu could take. Ben Yu could just be making his deck more aggressive. He could be boarding in his own Restless Swift Loss, for example.
Right.
To try to punish Ben Stark's slow deck. Or Ben Yu could also just be trying to make his own deck even slower with, cards like Bog Stomper that he just wants to go big and win the game. Or he could be bringing specific cards against what Ben Stark did, like Invoke the Divine against Millstone, for example. That's also like Duras. Those are things that he can do. And I think we've got our clue on which one of those it is when he chooses play or draw.
Sure.
Because if he chooses play, then I'm imagining, Restless Swift Claw is going to come down turn 2, and he's going to try to beat down Ben Stark. If he chooses draw, we know this is probably not the case, and he's just trying to win the control war.
All right, so really interesting stuff on the way here as we prepare for game number 3 between Stark and Yu. And I just want everybody at home to take note of the care that these players are putting into their sideboarding here as we head into match number 3, and indeed how much Stark thought about and changed up his deck for game number 2. And it's just something that I think in general players don't do enough, or certainly kind of just throw to the side a little bit as they're eager to play the next game. And it's something that I hope to get better at as a player for sure in the future. And it's kind of the number one thing I hear people telling me in the booth all the time is like, you've got to spend more time on your sideboarding. It's more important than you think.
Yeah, it is really important and limited. And this is the extreme of it. We saw a person
Yes.
with, start red and white and end up blue and green. It's a radical change that is dictated by what matchup he's playing. It actually comes down to what we talked a little bit before. Like, this format has matchups.
Yeah.
More so in draft than in sealed, but still more than other limited formats. But it's still something you can do that doesn't have to be as radical. Just, for example, my 3/1s don't match up well against my opponent's 1/1s, so I'm just going to take them out and add in 2/2s, for example. Well, 3/1 is generally better than 2/2, but you look at what's happening, you're like, well, this doesn't actually do anything, so you
Right.
just swap them. And people don't necessarily do that. They focus too much on sideboard cards that look like sideboard cards. So, like Plummet, Invoke the Divine. Those are obviously sideboard cards, right? You look at them, and you're like, well, this belongs in the sideboard. They play Flyers, I'm going to play Plummet.
This is why this exists, to
Yes.
live in my sideboard.
But then you look at Walking Corpse. Does it look like a sideboard card?
No.
But it's a perfectly fine sideboard card, right? Two-Headed Zombie. It's not a good card. Like, you're not super happy to play. It doesn't look like a sideboard card. But if Ben Yu had Two-Headed Zombie in his deck, in his sideboard, he's probably bringing it in against Ben Stark. So it is really interesting. that things that don't look at all like sideboard cards end up being really good sideboard cards because of how stats match on the creatures on both sides.
A decision that might not take a lot of time, but can make a huge difference in your game. And we are underway here for game number 3 between Ben Stark and Ben Yu.
And, ooh, see?
All right, yeah.
Wow, I'm a seer.
Holy cow,
Chose to be on the play.
Wow. And an Oresco Swift call, just exactly like what you said.
And that is not in his main deck. He brought it in.
All right, high five, Paulo.
Yeah,
that was pretty good. All right, the Swift Claw hitting the red zone here. Nobody back to block for Stark. We do have an explosive apparatus at the ready, but that's going to cost 3 to activate. And here's a Militia Bugler, so yet even more aggression from you.
Well, and some defense just
Yeah,
to get your bases
true.
covered.
That's true. There's a Diamond Mare.
You know, offense and defense. What else can you want? Yeah, I thought it was funny that you said, sometimes it doesn't take a long time. And in this case, it actually took a long time. There was like boarding for a very long time.
This case, it does.
But, yeah.
So the Explosive is going to take down the Oresco Swift Claw. That was the only play for Stark that turn. Militia Bugler with Vigilance gets in for Ben Yu.
Yeah, it's funny. Ben Stark actually calls that card the Militia Bugler. And there's nothing you can do that will convince him that it's not that. He is just, you're like, Ben, it's Bugler. And he goes, okay, so my opponent played Bugler. And I'm like, Ben Bugler. He's like, yeah, Bugler. And it's just...
I love it. I wish it was a little bug playing a bugle, and then I'd be like, all right, that's pretty good. The Bugler. Oh, I love Ben Stark stories. They're the best.
Oh, yeah. He's crazy.
Hot takes from the booth here at Grand Prix Minneapolis. Centaur Courser is the play for Stark. 3/3 for 3. Couldn't ask for a more classic creature in core set limited.
Yeah, and are we going to see, that Harpy going all in at some point? Like
I don't
the
know.
Diamond Bear isn't going to do much as a 1/3. Perhaps it's better off as a +1/+1 on counter on it.
Okay, so in comes the Harpy for you. Divination for Stark. By the way, who it appears has kept, at least from the look of it so far, pretty much the same deck that he had last game, although 2 copies of Explosive Apparatus, we don't know if he had those last game or not, but are kind of a little bit of a nod to cheaper creatures from you.
Yeah, and still gets rid of flyers, for example,
Yeah.
the Skymarsh Bloodladder. So it is kind of a good hedge. It will be okay if Menu doesn't morph into a more aggressive deck, and probably better if Menu does morph, which he did. Also kills Mentor of the Meek.
That's true.
So that might be a card that actually Stark brought in after Game 2. Like, we didn't see it in Game 2 because specifically of Mentor of the Meek.
And look at this. Ravenous Harpy getting hungry, gobbling up that Diamond Mare. Big horse for a meal. Gets a +1/+1 counter. And why do you think he chose to eat the horse there? Just because it turned out to be irrelevant versus the Courser?
I think so. He just wants to get into more damage. And that guarantees that the Harpy won't die to the Explosive Apparatus, even if he does have to tap out at some point. Like, otherwise he just has to keep a mana up every turn. I don't know if he's planning on spending his 6 mana at any time, but it is relevant. And yeah, the 1/3 is not doing anything. The life is not doing anything for you. It will probably be milled if you lose.
Yeah.
Anyway, so...
Bone Dragon hits the table for Ben Yu. Ravenous Harpy gets in an attack for 2.
Yeah, and the Ravenous Harpy actually protects the Bone Dragon from Luminous Bonds right now. Or a card like Switcheroo, which would otherwise deal with it. So, obviously it's going to take a while to come back if you do end up sacrificing it. So, if we see Luminous Bonds from Ben, yeah, it's probably just going to happen anyway. But Millstone is just going to make that process faster.
Oh, wow, this Nambo here. Oof.
Yeah.
Millstone gonna just feed that Bone Drake back into life for Ben Yu and see if we get the sacrifice here.
Interesting. We don't see the sacrifice, so we're kind of thinking Meteor Golem here.
Okay.
Right. So Ben Yu is thinking, if I have Meteor Golem, then or Lena.
Yeah, Lena
would also makes sense. Yeah, he can just sacrifice it now.
Wow, this Ravenous Harpy is going to be enormous.
Yeah, it is. It most definitely is. And now we're going to see this dragon being sacrificed.
Yep. Ravenous Harpy eats a bone dragon. It's got to be a bit of a grisly meal. Gets another +1/+1 counter. Luminous Bonds is gone. And now the bone dragon just has to wait for the milling to happen.
Yeah, and Ben Stark is in a pretty tough spot here. He doesn't have anything to deal with the board, and he also can't even try to begin killing his opponent because that would just bring the bone dragon back. So, yeah, at this point, like if you're Ben Stark, you have to really have no confidence in your red-white deck to keep a control mill plan against a deck with both bone dragon and chromium.
That's
because
true.
if Ben Yu just draws chromium in his opening hand, like he can stall on 4 lands for 7 turns, and he'll still get a chance to play chromium, and that will still beat Ben Stark just dead. So, you kind of wonder, like, how bad is your red-white deck that you actually have to do that in a matchup that doesn't actually seem that good for it. And it turns out the answer is pretty bad. I'm looking at it. It's not great.
No.
I'll give you that.
Any highlights?
There's one Transmogrifying.
He's probably still in.
It's still going to be there, yeah. And then there's Lina Selfless Champion. And, that's pretty much it. There aren't really a lot of powerful cards in that deck.
Sometimes, if your sealed pool doesn't cooperate, you're able to build a very hyper-aggressive deck. But sometimes you're able to build just an okay aggressive deck, in which case you're not very happy.
Yeah, for sure. And you're able to board into an okay control deck.
Yeah.
And, everything is just okay. Yeah, Ben Stark just looks extremely dead here. He does have a lot of cards in hand.
He's at 9 life. So this is a critical turn for Stark.
Oh, that's not what you want to do.
Sift,
yeah.
I feel like he has a Rabid Bite. And it's going to take down Lina. Yeah, and it can't even deal with that Harpy when Yu was tapped out.
Yeah, isn't Ben Stark just...
3, 4, 5, 6.
No, he's one short.
Yeah.
One short of killing. So any creature will kill Ben Stark here, assuming there's enough mana to sacrifice 2 creatures. But we're still going to see an all-in attack. Like, I imagine the Courser is going to block the Bugler, and then the Harpy will grow for 1, and then Ben Stark will end up at 1 life at the end of it. And we'll just have to draw Fog for the rest of the game to win, which seems unlikely. But.
All right, just like you said, Courser jumps in front of the Bugler. The rest of the team gets in.
Wow, he didn't even sacrifice it.
Oh, no.
I wonder why that was.
Ben Stark down to 2.
That's very interesting. There has to be a reason. I just can't come up with it.
And there is the handshake. Ben Yu takes down this match versus Ben Stark. 2-1. Will advance to an undefeated record of 5-0. Here in round 5 of Grand Prix Minneapolis, playing some core set limited. Well, a lot of really important lessons, I think, for people sitting at home who like to play competitively about sideboarding that round.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really a round to go back to. And, ultimately it didn't work for Ben Stark, but Ben Stark did something different, won game 2 because of it. Then Ben Yu did something different as well.
Right.
And in the end, Ben Yu won the game. But I think it was really cool what both players did. I think heads up play by both of them.
Yeah, and I mean, giving yourself the chance, just giving yourself even that much, whatever percentage it was, of a better chance to be able to win by boarding into that kind of slower Bant deck from Ben Stark, I think is a really cool thing to see. All right, we're going to have more from round 5 coming up here in just a minute. Minneapolis for Core Set Limited. Maria Bartholdi and Paulo Vito Damaderosa. Just saw some really cool stuff down in our feature match area, but we're not done yet. That's right, we have Time Walk Magic for you. This time, it's an all-German feature match. Mark Tobias versus Thoralf Severin. Both players currently undefeated, sitting at 4-0. Thorin Lieutenant is going to kick things off here for Tobias. Versus a reassembling skeleton from Severin. In comes the Thorin Lieutenant for a couple points of damage. An excellent 2-drop here in M19.
Oh yeah, one of the better ones. Again, the thing that you were most looking for in the 2-drop is that it's good early and good late.
Right.
And, Thorin Lieutenant ease both those things.
Yeah, you can pay 6, I believe it is, to give it a +4/+4. And if it's the target of a spell, you get to make an elf. So that's pretty good. 2 1/1s on Severin's side of the table. We've got Sky Scanner and, as I said, the reassembling skeleton. By the way, what do you think of this skeleton? Is it just, if you're playing a deck that's more conservative and wants to block, totally fine?
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty good in the right deck. There are a lot of sacrifice effects in this format. For example, the Harpy there we just saw, the Ravenous Harpy. You can just, kind of go off. You sacrifice it, you bring it back, you bring it back. So I think it's a card that I'll basically always play. It's really good against, small creatures and big creatures as long as they don't have trample or flying. And it just puts some decks just dead if you play it. Like the deck that we saw Ben Stark presenting game 1 with multiple Oreskos Swiftclaws, for example. Yeah. That deck has a huge problem with reassembling skeleton.
All right, well, a Balmy Dragon has just entered the fray here for Severin, demanding Dragon. Tobias now has to make a decision. Take 5 or sacrifice a creature. And it's going to be the Thorin Lieutenant who is falling to the Dragon.
Yeah, there's just too much damage in the air from Thoralf for Mark Tobias to just take 5 damage. He'll just be dead in 2 turns. Well, he's almost dead in 2 turns here. But
there's Dwindle to take care of the Dragon, though. For now, from Tobias. Aerial Engineer in play 2 for Mark over there, but no artifact to be seen.
Yeah, and here an interesting spot. Tobias doesn't want to trade 2 damage for 1. Right, just doesn't want to attack with that Engineer and get attacked by the reassembling skeleton. But there's still more flyers coming from Severin.
Vampire Sovereign hits the table. Will drain for 3 on top of being a 3/4 flyer.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite cards in this format, I think. The, Vampire Rhino type of thing. Siege Vampire.
Siege Vampire. Pegasus Corsair from Tobias. Not going to do a lot versus the Vampire Sovereign. Does hold off those Sky Scanners until now.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's a robot with an axe. Humanity is dead. In it comes. 3 power.
Oh, the Pegasus are also dead.
Yeah. Bye-bye, Pegasus.
And here, Tobias really needs an artifact to turn that Aerial Engineer on.
Take Vengeance. All right, we'll save Tobias from another hit from that Vampire Sovereign.
And Tobias does have Patient Refueling in hand, but he'll probably not have time to use that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's in a very patient position at 7 life here to Severin's 17.
No, definitely not.
Good cards in hand, too, as I spy from Severin. But all we need to do is keep re-equipping this Sky Scanner with an axe and swinging in. And there's a Doomed Dissenter.
Yeah, and there's even a Lich's Caress to stop anything there that Mark Tobias can play.
Manolith is going to send the Engineer to the air.
So this just puts himself... Oh, yeah, it does do that. So there is the Lich's Caress that we know of, so... Mark Tobias is dead, but even if there wasn't, it wasn't looking very good for him because the equipment could just be moved.
There was another one in his hand as well. Severin had 2 copies of Lich's Caress in hand at the end of the game. That always feels great. Vampire Neonate on turn 1 for Severin.
He played that land very forcefully.
Did
you see that? It was like a statement. Yeah, land, mountain.
I mean, when you're playing Rakdos, you're already making a pretty big statement. It's my favorite color pair.
Wait, what? I thought you were hexproof.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
unblockable.
like generally. In general. If I had to choose a guild in Ravnica, I pick Rakdos.
Unlike principle, like personality, or
Principal.
or the cards?
The cards. I really, because it was my first Magic I ever played was Return to Ravnica.
So you were a Rakdos player, but not a Rakdos person.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll say that. And I loved Unleash. That was my favorite because you're just, like, oh, I get to make my creature bigger and I still get to attack. That's like win, 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 win. Sign me up.
Fair, fair.
Druid of the Call and Manolith in play for Tobiash. So we're doing all the ramping here. We won't be short on land this time around. What guild are you, by the way?
It's a good question. Something with blue.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah. Not
You got
Simic.
it. Not Simic. Azorius?
I'm a bit Azorius, a bit Demir, a bit Izzet.
Okay.
I think. I'm Esper.
All
if
right,
I have
Esper.
to choose a short, yeah. I guess both in play style and also
Yeah.
in personality. I'm Esper through and through.
Megan is also Esper. We talked about this on the podcast.
Oh, she is?
Vampire Sovereign here for Severin will drain. And I couldn't think of a shard that I fit with, like, personality-wise. The best I could come up with was Naya. I don't know.
That's pretty good. It's not as good as Asper, of course, which
Oh,
is
no.
the best one. But, not everyone can be the best one.
That's true. That's true. Or everybody's just, just average.
Yeah, some people have to be Hufflepuffs.
Wow, shots fired. Hufflepuffs offended the world over. Good thing I'm a Gryffindor, safe here. Strangling Spores takes care of the Herald of Faith from Tobiash. But we still got the Thornhide Wolves in play. And Sky Scanner here will draw Tobiash a card, add a blocker to the air, if he so chooses, at some point, to chump that Sovereign, or we could just take a big old bite out of it. Thornhide Wolves chomp down. Down goes the Sovereign. And in comes another Druid of the Cowl.
Yeah, and it's a very different game. Now, even though Tobiash is at 11 live, and is not presenting much of a clock. It has a lot
That's
of
true.
permanents in
Yeah.
play. They just don't do anything. It might as well be a bunch of lands.
Yeah, Lich's Caress is going to take care of those Thornhide Wolves. And, well, I guess we're going to attack you for 3 with our 1/1s. You're only going to take 2, though. Severin has a Neonate in play to block. And 2 Pegasus Coursers. Okay.
I think that is the least amount of power I've ever seen in this many cards.
That's true.
But it will probably get the job done. I guess Turl has even less power
Yeah,
proportionally,
0.
but that's easier to obtain.
Doom Dissenter. Oh, we only have 0 or 1 power creatures on the board right now. What is going on?
Yeah, this is looking like the beta draft.
Ah.
No, I assume everything is flying over here.
Yes. We've got everything's flying from Tobiash thanks to those Pegasus Coursers, sending those Druids of the Cowls to the air. Yeah, he's like, you can't block these. These up flying.
Yeah, they have whatever word for German, whatever German word for flying is.
Oh, I don't know. We've got to call Marshall. Phone a friend. I was thinking of Isolate only cares about like converted mana cost.
Yeah, Isolate it has to cost
Yeah,
1.
converted mana cost.
So we can kill Neonate. Hooray!
Hey man, sometimes you gotta kill a Neonate. Tobiash stabilized here at 9 life. Severin can chip away with that Neonate, speaking of, but it's gonna take a little while. Spitflame deals with 1 Pegasus Courser. An excellent card in M19.
Which one? Pegasus Courser or Spitflame?
Spitflame.
Yeah. It's really good if you can bring it back. Obviously, it's great even if you can't bring it back.
Yeah.
But if you can, he's just...
Oh, he's got a dragon in hand.
Oh, he doesn't have enough mana to bring it back yet.
Oh, you gotta wait. Bog Stomper now stomps all over the board that had been created by Tobiash. Can still fly over, but the Bog Stomper cannot be ignored.
No, and
It's pretty big.
It looks like it. Mark Tobiash has been on the offensive this entire game, but
Yeah.
actually he's just at a lower life total than Severin, who's drained so much over the course of the game. With the Neonates drained a lot, and then the Vampire Sovereign also and it adds up.
All right, the Boggy Boy, which I usually reserve for Boggles, getting in there. Bog Stomper stomping all over that Druid of the Cowl.
The daddy boggle.
Yeah. They probably live in the same bog.
Wait, is that what boggle's from?
Maybe. I actually hadn't thought about that. It just might be. I don't know where else you get that name. Some Lorwyn flavor expert, please help us out here. Or Shadowmoor. Fell Spectre from Severin. Discard from Tobiash. Gets hit for another 2 life there off of that Fell Spectre.
Yeah, and adds a flying blocker. So I guess it can always be tapped, but yeah, it's not looking great for Mark here.
Yeah, he certainly had the pedal to the metal a little bit early on in the game and even through the mid game, but unable to deal much damage with those 1-power creatures. Giant Spider here joins the team, though. We'll be able to do a little bit of blocking on that Fell Spectre, but Vampire Neonate continues to drain Tobiash out.
Yeah, and now we can just see a Volcanic Dragon, and there is the Spider to block it, but it's certainly not looking good.
Bog Stomper comes in. Druid of the Cowl jumps in front for the chump block. A Lich's Caress takes care of the Starcrown Stag, which had joined the team for Tobiash.
Yeah, and I think a good play here by Severin. He could have played the dragon and attacked, and then he would have, definitely won the following turn, but he could also just randomly have died to our top deck from Mark. And now there's no way he can die. He just has plenty of blockers. He's going to be able to drain for 1 again. He gained 3 life from Lich's Caress. So he basically put the game in a position where he realistically cannot lose.
And that's a question you have to ask yourself, too. Like, is it worth me getting greedy here? Or should I just play so that I have it completely locked up and I know that I do? I made a bad play like that yesterday.
Oh, what did you do?
I attacked with a lifelinking creature that I didn't need to because I was in such a strong position. And I'm like, well, if they have abnormal endurance, it gets me. And they are able to abnormal endurance or skeleton archer specifically, which would then come back into play and kill my Aresco Swiftclaw. But I was like, they probably don't have it. Attack, yeah. They had it.
Yeah, it's always like, yeah, they're not going to have that.
Right.
What are the odds? And it turns out it's like 100%. They always have it.
They always have it. Well, Severin takes down this match versus Mark Tobiash here, winning 2-0 for our Time Walk round here in round number 5 of GP Minneapolis. Welcome back to the booth, Maria Bertholdi and Paulo Vitor Damaderosa. Anything kind of stick out for you in that match that you just watched there?
Well, less so than in the previous match, but I think really just the power of the drain effects in black. Because we saw, a player attack every turn of the game with multiple creatures and still be at a lower life total than the opponent 10 turns later. So just Vampire Neonate and Vampire Sovereign are just very, very powerful cards, I think. And the drain effect does add up.
And the Neonate doesn't just have to be in a black-white life gain deck. It can fit anywhere.
Yeah, it's a fine defensive and even aggressive creature sometimes.
All right, well, more Magic's coming up your way in just a minute.